Hi there, welcome to Church Talk episode 2. We said last week that we would come up with a better name. We are yet to. I think we're just liking Church Talk, to be honest. Today, what are we talking about?
We're going to be talking about ambition in general.
Ambition. Ambition in general with our generation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, today it was my turn to pick the points. As if y'all didn't catch last week, this is a podcast where it's just Jose and I talking about stuff that y'all ask us in class. We don't have time to cover it, etc. I feel like we've had a lot of conflict with what's a true ambition in our lives. And so today we are going to be digging into that. So, Jose, can you give us a definition of the world's view of ambition?
I think ambition in most people's mind is, maybe not most people. Ambition is sometimes seen as get a nice, well-paying job, buy yourself a nice house, get yourself a nice car, marry somebody you love, and then, live a happy, steady life. I think that's pretty much what sums
Basically,
up.
just pass those hurdles and you're set.
Yeah. That's your ambition should be to make money. I think money is really all people focus on nowadays.
So with that being kind of the foundation for what we're going to talk about with the world ambition, how would you define spiritual ambition? In other words, ambition from the saved one.
Mm-hmm. A spiritual ambition, a hunger for God is really in having a closer relationship with God, but also being ready to move in what God calls us to do, being ready to be used by God, because that's the command that he gave all of us to do. So a strong Christian that is ambitious about what he's doing, what he believes, is going to move with what God has him doing, but also maintain a strong relationship with the Lord.
And also be a God-fearing individual.
Right.
So we're going to dissect this a little bit more, but I think that, we're talking about this in a minute, but there's a world, what a lot of Christians don't realize is they're carrying out their day with the world's view of ambition. They don't realize that, hold on a second, this is not what God intends for me to be doing. And I know this because I'm not praying enough, and I'm just not, if somebody asks me to defend my faith, I just can't do it. And so I think that's where it becomes obvious that you are not aligned with what your spiritual ambition should be.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a little bit more about like some beliefs and values and how they would associate with your ambition?
Well, like you were saying, people getting the picture, distorted a bit. It's easy to fall into that. Going to work every day, paying your bills, putting food on the table.
It's easy to form a routine.
Right.
Without
Forming that
realizing that
routine
you're
and
doing it.
also just completely disregarding your spiritual life and wanting to focus on, where are we going to travel? Where are we going to, what car are we going to get next? What's our next move to improve the house? What else can I buy? What other shoes do I need? What other pants do I need? And it's just anything, literally anything could be something that you're wanting to improve yourself
And
on.
at a certain point, you have to feel content. You have to realize this is all material. This is only this little speck of an infinite yarn that is just irrelevant.
But if people people on their own without God won't come to that conclusion.
Right, and that's where it's our generation's job to be ambitious Christians and exercise your spiritual gifts and everything that God has given you to be.
Yeah.
So in Colossians, today we do have Bible verses, folks. Colossians 3, verse 23, it says, "Whatever you do, do it enthusiastically, as something done for the Lord and not for men." So that's where we have to distinguish world ambition and spiritual ambition, because one is for the Lord and one is for men. And the one for men is not the correct way. And so that's where a lot of people, like, doing something enthusiastically is biblical. When you're serving in ministry and they ask you to do, like, hey, can you go please open the front door? And you sigh and you drag your foot over there. I know I'm guilty of it. That is not a good ambition. You are bringing the world's ambition into the church in this particular example. If something that, like, I'm going to expose us for a second. Last week, like I said, they gave a couple of kids the keys to the church, and we just did it. On the way out, left the tripods where they were, left our waters right here, left the table, left the chairs, and just dipped. And then the next day, they had a leadership meeting in here, and the pastor ended up having to clean up all this stuff. And so that's where, to expose ourselves, we're all sinners. We did not have a proper ambition. We had the ambition to knock the podcast out, send it out to the youth, and everything else is irrelevant. But what a lot of people don't realize with the church is it's not about the preaching. It's about everything that happens outside of the preaching. How do you carry yourself when you walk around? Do you take initiative? If you see one chair is about an inch off the rest of the chairs, do you go and align it? That little stuff is extremely important, and you're going to find your life with más éxito, more prosperous, I guess, if you put an enthusiasm into what you're doing. If somebody, and hey, it's not easy, but if somebody asks you, like, hey, please go do this for me, there's a reason they're asking you. And it's wrong to make assumptions that, oh, I'm the only one that can do it, so I'm just going to drag my feet, or, oh, whatever. And that's where, in my opinion, the world ambition gets brought into the church. You know what I mean by that?
Or sometimes it's not really the world, it's the lack of ambition towards the church.
Sure.
You know what I mean? The kid could be, well, let's say we're talking about a kid, and the pastor or myself or one of us asks a youth to move a chair, and the kid sighs and
we've had this happen. Like, hey, can you? I almost said the name. Can you go get us a chair from the other room? Well, why can't you do it? Or when Jose and I had a fundraiser for as a youth group, we currently sponsor 7 students in a school in Nicaragua, and we had to fundraise constantly for months in a row, every single Sunday. And the youth would help us with it, but there were a few youth where we're like, hey, can you please go put a table in the hall that we're gonna put like all the condiments on or whatever. They're like, oh, but is the table really necessary when we're talking about 20 feet of walking and grab the table and bring it back? It's gonna take you 2 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's where, like, we have to be enthusiastic about what we're doing. And this is something that I've suffered from, I know for sure. Especially during COVID, I had to acknowledge the fact that, like, I am not excited to come to church. I'm just not excited. I'm not looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had to have a little bit of realignment in the last month or so of, like, I really should be enthusiastic about this, because especially now during a pandemic, this is the time for Christ to shine.
Yeah. Well, the kid that doesn't want to do it doesn't really, I can't say he doesn't care, but he just doesn't feel the need to do anything here. He feels like he just comes, listens to a word, listens to some music, and then leaves. I feel like that's because if he doesn't want to help, then he doesn't really just like the idea of church, or he's not really, vibing with what church is, or something along those lines is going through that kid's mind when he doesn't want to help here.
So this is something that I did not plan for, but let me read this verse and then we'll go into it. In Proverbs 21:21, it says, "Whoever pursues righteousness and unfailing love will find life, righteousness, and honor." So when it says pursues righteousness, what do you think that means? And once we've defined the correct righteousness, then we can reread the verse.
Righteousness in the sense of
You know,
doing
whoever
good in God's
pursues
eyes.
righteousness. Whoever pursues righteousness.
I think that righteousness is summed up in being a good man in God's eyes.
It might be a simple word. I'm just going to define.
Yeah, being good in God's eyes really will get you a pretty much all the way through life as a good person, and you will be seen as a righteous person because if you're God fearing, you'll obey the laws. If you're God fearing, you'll, do something for your brother. If you're God fearing, you'll help others. You'll do more.
And I think we can dissect it to where it says right, and then it says isness, justness, whatever. But first it says right. So in my me reading this, it's I should always not be right like in an argument, but be right. When nobody's looking, don't steal the car, don't steal the money, don't steal, whatever. Whenever nobody's looking, don't go get just wasted. That's the kind of right that I'm talking about. Be right in what you're doing. Don't be wrong. And so I guess that's just a more fancy way of saying be right, righteousness. And so it says, whoever pursues righteousness and unfailing love will find life, righteousness, and honor. So I think that when you have a lack of ambition, it's hard for you to argue that you're pursuing righteousness. You know what I mean by that? It's hard for you to talk in your mic if you're gonna say anything. It's hard to we had this problem last week, folks. This is episode 2, guys. Our producer is saying that she has the magic. Anyway, I don't know what I meant by that, but it just says unfailing love will find life, righteousness, and honor. So in order for you to really pursue something, I'm pretty sure that pursue is a synonym for ambition in a way. You can't have ambition if you're not pursuing something. That's what it is. Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're pursuing by having ambition. So if you want honor in your life, if you want people to respect you, and if you want to respect yourself, you need to pursue righteousness. I guess is what that means by that. So we will touch on some of these verses here in a bit. But now let's touch a little bit on the question of who do you surround yourself with? Now, we could have easily included this in the dating advice podcast, and I'm surprised that in an hour and a half we did not. But let's ask the question now: who do you surround yourself with, and how? Jose, who do you surround? No, I'm just kidding. How does that surround with? How does that relate with your ambition? How is that gonna affect you?
It, in my opinion, it really comes down to where that one person is, where you are, whether the people around you will influence you or not. If you are stumbling and not knowing
your level of self-control,
your level of what's the word? Your level of
like
understanding yourself, self-respect,
identity.
yes, if you're solid in your identity, then somebody coming around mopey or doing something that you don't associate yourself with won't move you. You know what I mean? But for that person that is not solid in themselves, then those friends will be really controlling or will really make an impact in that person's life.
We really could have argued this in the dating podcast about 2 years ago. No, this was last year. I had to give a teaching to the youth at one of our youth nights. And so I mentioned the fact that I have a friend who I hope is not listening to this podcast, who when I was in high school, it's like high school drama. When I was in high school, she kept having like boyfriends and stuff, right? And every time she'd have one, it wouldn't end well because whether or not they were a Christian, she would take the approach of, oh, I'll convert them. Or, oh, they'll meet Jesus through me. So why should I not have to date them now if they're going to be Christian at the end, that kind of thing. And, oh, man. And so I'm getting annoyed just thinking about it. And so she started dating a full-blown, like, prays 4 times a day, 5 times a day. How many is it for Islam? 5 times a day now? It's 5. They pray 5 times a day. I mean, full-blown Muslim. And I'm like, how can you be dating them? And they're like, it's 'cause we've had really good talks and they're coming closer to Christ. And I'm like, but you're dating them now? I was like, I don't know about that. So the reason I bring this up is because if you're trying to have ambition to pursue God's plan for you, part of God's plan for you is to develop your family, to develop your pillars of your values, and to spread His love to your surroundings. So by surrounding yourself that closely with someone who has a completely different faith than you, and I was friends with him separate from her, and I had asked him, I'm like, how can you be dating her if she's Christian? And he's like, oh, she'll convert to Islam. And I was like, I don't know, man. I don't think that's gonna happen. And he's like, the day will come. And I'm like, I don't know. So you've got one saying that they're gonna convert to Christianity, and the other saying they're gonna convert to Islam. And it's just, I don't understand why I have to explain why that might be a little problematic, you know? And so that's where your ambition is just getting weighed down. Your emotional identity in yourself is getting damaged. And especially, we're about to get into our generation. Our generation is like, what's the oldest it gets? 24, Gen Z? I think it gets up to 24, maybe 25. You're still, on my insurance, it's not going to go down until I turn 25, because at that point, I'm really a biological man. Now I'm like a boy, I'm a child. And so you are also a child, even though you pay taxes and you're 23. And so, hey, in the eyes of, and so your frontal cortex doesn't develop until between 23 and 27. So where I'm getting at is, when you're in the transition at this time, I was still in high school, into college, you are framing who you're going to be. You're framing what kind of music you like. Are you a debater? Are you a contemplator? Are you an introvert? Are you an extrovert? You're developing all these things, and it's going to be a massive insecurity if you're surrounding yourself with someone that emotionally attached, who has a completely different religious view than you, who also thinks that you're going to convert to what they are. Both of you, when that relationship ends, because it will, unless God works a miracle and the one that goes Christian, that's just, it's gonna create you're gonna have some insecurity. It's like when you're scared to drive, and right on your 18th birthday, you're like, you know what, it's time, I'm gonna drive, and then you crash and you total the car, and now you are probably never gonna drive again. And if you do, it's gonna be very minimal. Like you're not gonna want to do it. You're gonna have to make yourself drive, unless you're just somebody that is just a daredevil.
I think I'm the exception. I think I started driving when I was like
Wait, have you totaled a car?
11, 12 years old. No, but I've gotten many tickets, and that never stopped me from.
He said many tickets.
From driving, continuing to drive.
Well, why did you get tickets, if I may ask? I've been pulled over 4 times.
I should not have been driving at that age.
I've only gotten 1 ticket, so.
Well.
Should not have been driving at that age?
Yeah. I'll leave it at that.
When you got pulled over?
Too young.
So you couldn't, if I remember correctly, you couldn't get your license till you were 18, right? And then you had to pay a ton of fines.
Surcharges, yeah.
And didn't you have a warrant out for your arrest?
Maybe. Did I say that?
Yes.
Oh.
I think I was I don't remember, but I think I was at your house and you opened the mail and you're like, warrant for my arrest, and then you threw it away or something. I don't remember.
I don't deny it.
Anyway, but this is where it gets into surrounding yourself with good people.
Mm.
And I'm not saying that you were a bad person in that time, but hey, I drove to school before I drove to school when I was 14, just driving to school, because my dad would travel, my mom would work, we had an extra car, my mom was like, take the truck, and I was like, okay. And but that's where I drove very cautiously, nervous, making sure there were no cops. I almost bought a radar detector. I was frightened because driving without a license is a no. My mom didn't drive for 2 weeks because her license expired. And that's where the difference of your values get put into place.
Yeah.
Because if you're around people that are just driving carelessly, I had friends that also didn't have their licenses and they'd be driving. I wasn't allowed to go near them. And a lot of them ended up in crashes, and some of them are injured to this day.
Golly.
And that's where you need to surround yourself with people that are equally ambitious as you are.
Yeah.
You know what I mean by that?
Yeah, and have the
someone,
the
and it
same
doesn't mean that you can't hang out with people that have disagreements with you. If anything, all the more. If you are truly established in your plan for your God's plan for you, and you pray and you're asking God for strength and for guidance, of course you can hang out with people that don't agree with you, because your ambition. Because I guess I should have made this point first. It's also good to hang out with people that have an ambition that you'd like to get to, an ambition that you look up to, a role model, that kind of person.
But there you gotta know what you want.
Right, and you can't go around.
You can't go stumbling
and
around.
And you also exactly. That's where it can't be distorted, and you also can't think that you're everyone's role model. because then you get cocky.
Mm-hmm.
It's not bad to give people advice, but if you're walking around like oh, everybody looks
Like
up
you're
to
the
me,
best,
like
yeah.
I'm chilling, whatever. That's not very good. Especially in school, because it's very easy. If you're the only one that got like 100 on the test and everybody else got like, there's like a 20-point curve and you messed it up because you got 100 and everybody else got 80 and below.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's gonna be trying to follow you. And so are you just gonna like not study anymore and not care, or are you gonna really try to tutor them and help them get to where they're going?
Yeah, stay humble. Stay
Exactly.
humble.
Yeah, I guess that's the 2-word version.
Stay humble. Stay righteous.
Sit down. Stay. If you know, you know, folks.
Stay stay to yourself, focus, know who you are, surround yourself with the people that you want to learn from. You know what I mean? That you may look up to. I only have like 2 friends. Okay, I have more friends. But 2 friends that
How
I've
many
had for
Facebook
a
friends do
long
you have?
time. I don't know. I really don't know. But I have 2 solid friends. I got friends from church, but those 2 solid friends, one of them is doing really well for himself, and the other one's, a solid friend, a good guy, and I feel like personally I have no problem getting people away from me, cutting people off. That's what I'm trying to get at.
But are you toxic?
No, because I cut them off.
Yeah.
And if I enjoy them, if I feel like if I wholeheartedly enjoy this person, I will welcome them with open arms into my life. Does that make sense? But I don't allow people who
Sure.
I don't want to associate myself. So I don't open the door. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or if something happens, then I shut the door quickly. And I have that pro. It could be a con. Maybe you're shutting the door too quickly. Yeah.
Yeah, because you can't be petty.
Well, I'm not petty.
I know, but like, I'm not saying you are. I'm saying that a lot of people that just like, oh my God, you just said something that I don't agree with.
Oh,
You're
okay,
out.
okay. Yeah, right.
Or you're not welcome here ever again. because
Yeah,
you
yeah,
said
that's
that.
true. No, I think I keep a pretty steady
Good.
head. Yeah.
I have the same. I don't count my friends. Not that that's bad. I just don't. I've never done that. I have like a couple like really like I have one of my best friend. Like if I were to get married tomorrow, I already know who my best man would be. Like I have that friend.
See that.
And then I have other people that like are my friends, but I wouldn't necessarily call them at 2 a.m. because I'm depressed or that kind of thing.
Right.
I have my set list where I'm like, okay, these people can really bring me to another level. It's about who you surround yourself with and who has the same ambition as you. And I know that these people are also trying to pursue God's plan for them, but I can relate and they have the same goals in life as I do. So I'm going to call them. That doesn't mean they have the same views as me, but they are equally ambitious or more. So I know that I'm going to call them. But somebody who's on the struggle bus or not very strong in their faith, I'm not going to call them. It's just not smart.
You
for me
know
to do.
that they're not.
And I have friends that aren't
Solid.
Christian. I have friends that aren't Christian that I'll call for advice, but it's not spiritual advice. It's not. It's like it's different stuff. If it's like deeply spiritual, and I know this has to do with my faith, I don't call them. And that's something that's important to recognize. It's not like I have a hard time understanding this Bible verse. I'm gonna call the least Christian person that I know for some advice on it,
Yeah.
because it just doesn't. If they don't believe in what they're talking about, they're probably going to be laughing at you when you ask them for help. You have to have accountability partners. You have to have people that like you can fall on.
Mm-hmm.
I remember our former youth leader Case used to talk about like he'd always name like every Sunday his two accountability partners that he knew. If he was having some serious issues, he could count on them, and they would hold him accountable for his actions.
Mm-hmm.
He wouldn't have to worry about them babying him or coddling him. They would tell him exactly what's wrong in the situation.
That's great.
And that's important to have.
Yeah.
And so, real quick, let's win you some brownie points. We should have covered this in dating advice. I'm single, not necessarily looking, but I am. So I can only comment so much. But you actually have a future wife. You're not engaged, but I mean, that'll probably change.
Yeah.
What looking at your girlfriend, who I know and I think is very ambitious, what does she have ambition? I guess I should ask you. And how does she help you continue to be ambitious? And is that like something like this isn't I don't mean for this to be a loaded question, but is that something that like
A loaded
you've-
question.
is this something that like you've been looking at?
I think she is very ambitious, and she likes going after new things. In her baking, she's done baking, she's done sewing, she's done cooking, um, she's done.
She's also getting her degree, right?
Yeah, she's very close to graduating. She's gonna finish in August. She is very ambitious, and I feel like she is a great um, motivation for me. She's
Somebody that brings you to another level.
yes. So, and I feel like working, off of each other. Um, we help each other, encourage each other to seek more and do more and be better. And I do believe she's ambitious. What was the other part of the question?
Is that something that you looked for? I guess.
Well, I've known her for a very long time.
I think I asked like 3 things that meant one thing.
Yeah. Well, to answer that specific point, I've known her for a very long time, and we've both matured.
Y'all grew up together, right?
Pretty
'Cause y'all
much,
met
yeah.
like at what, like 15, 16?
No, just the other day we were thinking. I went to go play at a convention with a church, another church, a friend of mine's church. I played guitar for them, and Denise went with me, and Ruby went with me, and we were just talking or whatever, and Ruby was saying something about how long we've known each other, and next year it'll be like 10 years that I've known her. So
So you've developed together. I mean, you haven't been dating for 10 years, but
No.
but like you've gone through struggles together. And haven't y'all like broken up in the past?
we have.
So y'all, you had your I don't mean to get awkward, but so you've had your growth periods like after breaking up. You've had your chance to like not. I'm not talking about the
Grow.
relationship. I'm talking about like grow in your faith, make errors, mature,
Yeah,
and so
all
has
that.
she. And then y'all got back together. So with that ambition, you've been able to see each other, even see each other when you didn't have ambition, and now when you do.
True. Yeah. Like that's why I was saying that we've.
I'm saying
known
it might
her-
be good for the listener to hear like we have experience.
Yeah,
relatively.
that I've known her from when I was still in high school, not knowing what I really wanted to do, until now that I have a plan. I see myself working in a field, and
Okay, so you say you have a plan. That's gonna bring me into the next one. I added this while you were talking. So this is not, to the listener, this is not a chance for me and Jose to flex or talk about like, oh, we're doing this, you're doing that,
Mhm.
whatever. What I'd like is for Jose to break down what he does Sunday to Sunday. What do you do throughout the week? And then I'll break down what I do, and that way the listener can know where we're coming from. We aren't people that like live in our parents' basement and play Xbox One all day
Mhm.
and just decided on whenever the day that we're recording this is, assuming it's not live because that's disclosed. Whenever that was, we didn't just get up off the couch like let's do this podcast and then go back to doing nothing.
right.
I think that for our age group, we're 2 fairly ambitious people,
Mhm.
relatively.
Mhm.
We have a lot of room to grow and we have our flaws.
Right.
But so, what do you do, like from Sunday to Sunday, on a normal season, not holiday break, not COVID, whatever?
Sunday to Sunday.
What are like positions you hold? I guess.
All right, here we go. Sunday morning. Wake up, come to church,
How early?
play guitar. 8:00 or later. 8:00 here.
He's not supposed to be later.
Practice, pray, have church, play in the worship team. Then I teach the youth. I'm the youth director, leader, whatever it is that you want to call it.
Pastor, if you will.
Pastor. I haven't been given that title, but sure, whatever. I do that. Monday, go to work. Out of the house by 6:30.
Don't you play for another church Sunday afternoons?
No, not every Sunday. No.
Okay.
This one was a special. This last time that I was talking about was a special event that we had been planning for about a month. We've had practices for it. It was just a big evangelistic live for Colombia. Actually, I think the video's on YouTube. So maybe I could give you the link to that so they could go watch it. It was actually very empowering. But go to work, come home, whatever it is I need to do, uh, whether it be, chores around the house, preparing lessons for Thursday night, church. I work Monday, Tuesday. We have this now, Wednesday, sometimes we have Zoom meetings.
We have weekly leadership meetings on Wednesdays at the church.
And then we have church again Thursdays, which again I work Monday through Saturday most of the time. Here at 6:30 to practice, play, listen to the word, and then sometimes give a word. Like I was saying, during the week I may prep a word to give Thursday, then prep another word to give on Sunday. Work Friday, and during this whole time of the week, I'm prepping songs for Sunday. I'm prepping songs for Thursday, and then work Saturday, then Sunday, do it again. That's what I do.
Okay, cool. How many hours do you work a week?
It really depends. Right now, since it's summer, I do AC, and so right now is like, the heat of the moment for our work or whatever. So we're working maybe 45 plus hours a week.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right, and you are 23. And then some plans that you have, like, for example, we're taking the youth. They've been asking me if we're not going to do it because of COVID. If anything, COVID gives us all the more reason to do it. We started this last year. We did a youth missions trip to Mexico City.
Mm-hmm.
We fully intend to do that again this December.
Yeah.
I've already saved up. I'm ready for it. I'm about to set deadlines for youth to sign up. And last year it was just me, Emmy, Denise, and Jose, and they supplied us with a team down there. We were equally effective. The church sent us with big donations, and we did amazing things. This year, if it has to be the same amount of people, although we are already at 6 people, including us 4 and some others, but that's another conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just stuff that we're working towards. Those 7 students that I mentioned we sponsor, we have to sponsor for another year, so we have to look into fundraising for that. We're trying to bring our youth group to other levels because we're trying to be ambitious through the work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. Okay, what I do like Sunday to Sunday, so I go to UTA. If you're unaware, it's University of Texas at Arlington. I study finance. I hate it when people say finance, but when I say finance, I'm like uneducated. So I say finance. So basically, like during school, it's summer. During school, get up. Usually have to be there at 8 or 9. So 35-minute drive. I have to do that. Go to school. I take 15 hours. Last year I took 18 or 17. This year I'm doing 15. So I have to do that. After classes, I go to the gym because your health is important, even though I haven't been since March because the gym is closed. But before COVID, I was at the gym every single day right after class. I lost like 30 pounds. Don't at me. But anyway, I've gained about 10 back. But so I go to school, I go to the gym, I go home, take a quick shower, put on my work clothes. I work at Chili's. Hi, welcome to Chili's. My name's Ethan. Would you like some chips and salsa, whatever? Go to work. I work probably 20 to 30 hours a week. So I do that throughout the week.
Could you give me a Bible?
We record the podcast.
Bible.
Yeah, Bible, please. A
Bible.
A Bible.
A Bible.
Biblia, Reina Valera.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, so I work. We do the podcast. I as well come to church on Thursdays. I'm an assistant to Jose at youth for whatever he may need. I'm also on the music team. I'm in charge of missions at the church, etc. I run I hope y'all haven't been looking at my shirt. I forgot that I'm wearing it. I probably should have changed. So let's not talk about politics. But I do run a political chapter at my university. I do run a nonprofit political organization. Anyway, so I do that. I have a podcast outside of church, also political, so I really can't shout it out. And I do some other stuff, but so between us two, we really try to pursue our life goals for ourselves. So between Sunday and Sunday, I tend to be fairly busy, just like Jose. I tend to leave my house about 8, come home, go to work, come home again pretty much every day. If I'm not doing that, I'm probably doing my podcast, or I'm probably doing schoolwork. Schoolwork or my chapter work for the political organization I may or may not be a part of. And so there's that. Now that we've established like Sunday to Sunday type stuff, we also do things like we're part of Mundo de Fe, so there are over 200 churches spreading across Latin America. So naturally, we have a lot of opportunity to pursue our calls, which we're very blessed for. I think unless it gets canceled because of COVID, we're both going to Mexico in August to play for the church's anniversary in Mexico City. We're going to Mexico in December again for taking a group. We're going to give out blankets and jackets, etc. We're doing that fundraiser for Nicaragua. We tend to stay fairly busy, so there's that. Now, I also hadn't included this. Right after this point, we will get into talking about our generation. But Jose, because this is almost already... Oh, never mind. We're only at 40 minutes. Wow. What is... I guess you don't have to have a time limit, but I'm going to need a time limit. What is your plan? What are your ambitions for, until death?
Until death.
I can go first if you want.
Yeah, take it. Go ahead.
Okay, but have to have something prepared. Okay. I say this with a lot of prayer. I've had a lot of spiritual confirmations about this. So I'm studying finance. I intend to always have a savings account designated for ministry. I will always be at church on Sunday. It doesn't matter where I may fall, where the cookies may crumble, if you will. It doesn't really matter. I will always be at church on Sunday. But I do intend to work in the finance world. When I finish my finance degree, I want to study 2 years of theology to establish myself further in the word of the Lord. Amen. And then the whole wife and kids thing. And then I intend to that's a whole other podcast. And then I intend to always be tucking away, because it's good to live by faith. But if you're going to pursue ministry, what my main concern, I don't want it to be, is every single month, okay, how much money came in? On Facebook, hey, we're $500 short of the church's rent. Please donate. I don't want to be that person. Not that that person is bad or any lesser of a person. It's just not who I am. And it doesn't mean you can't live by faith. It just means that I feel like I've been given certain opportunities and I should take advantage of them by getting a college education and by saving. And college education, you can make more in blue collar than you can at college right now. So I'm not saying that college is the way. For me, it is. Doesn't mean it is for everyone. You can make $150 a year being a plumber. So anyway, but that's basically my plan. I intend to, at a certain point, stop working in finance, go into ministry wherever I may be called, whether that's living abroad, being a missionary, whether that's whatever, overseeing churches, being a pastor, whatever God may call me to be, being a busboy, I don't know. So I intend to go full into ministry. And then I have some political aspirations, but I can't really get deep into politics on the podcast. Let's just say I do intend to use politics to pursue ministry. I'll leave it at that. If you'd like more information, you can talk to me outside of the podcast, and I will explain it to you. But I can't get too controversial. And that is me. I have not been told to say that. So, anyways. That's basically my quick version, time-sensitive version of my plan. I've had a lot of, this is kind of personal for me, so I'm not going to go into big detail, but I've had a lot of spiritual confirmation, if you will, a lot of prophetic words that confirm that plan, even though I haven't really given that plan to these people that I've gotten prophetic words from. And those are kind of personal to me, so I don't really feel like putting it out there on the internet. But what is your plan for your life, if you will?
Life and death. If you know me, you know that I have a really one day you're here, one day you're not mentality.
Like you as a person?
Yeah, I feel like any second the Lord can take us. Imagine that.
Like-
This is a
Like
This is a
mid sentence right now,
parenthesis.
Jesus
Yeah.
can come back.
either that or you step out the door and someone comes by and kills you, runs you over or something.
Okay.
Okay, so that's always at the forefront of my mind because that's why I asked for this Bible. I'm gonna get to that here in another point, good and bad.
Denise will be with us for that part.
Yeah. But coming back to a life ambition, I'm blessed to be able to serve, and right now I want to work in my field, develop myself, and hone that skill, open up my own company, build that company as what's going to sustain me and my family, my children. If God gives me children, if God lets me see the day of getting married, I think I've been blessed to have a career opportunity like this, to work somewhere that can make me stable. You know what I'm saying? Like you said, saving. I have a good savings. I want to continue saving, continue investing in myself, into what I do, and playing guitar. Do that to establish myself, and God's time go into praise and worship and music for God full time. That's that's what I feel like I've been called to do. Of course, doing missions, because I feel like I was called to do missions too, and I feel God's support in missions.
When Jose talks about missions, we can get into another podcast about your spiritual gifts and what God intended for you to be doing. I do think this is not me saying that evangelizing isn't for everybody. Everybody should know how to evangelize and pursue it.
Mm-hmm.
But I tend to focus on other things. Evangelism for me is a little bit hard because I get extremely focused on what the person I'm talking to is thinking of me. I get very focused on that. I get focused on the idea that if I don't think hell is real, why am I going to believe what you're talking about? I get very focused on that.
Numbers too.
This does not mean that I don't evangelize, and this does not mean that I'm insecure or whatever. But Jose does have a little bit more of a gift for evangelizing. This past trip to Mexico, the man was crying, folks. I don't know if he wanted that to be private, but he talks about God and he starts crying. I mean, it's a passion of his. It's not that it's not a passion of mine. I'm just saying that when he talks about that,
Everybody has their
evangelizing
gifts.
is, for me, I really have to prepare myself to evangelize. I really, and it's not that nobody prepares themselves. I'm saying to another degree. Like, I overthink it completely.
Mhm.
And it's not that it's not a big deal. It's just that,
It's just how you work.
right, it's you as a person. So anyway, when Jose says that, he's very se aplica to doing that. Anyways, so back to what you were saying.
Yeah. So going into ministry full time, I don't know if it'd be, writing music, Christian music, for the Christian community. I don't know if it'd be going and serving at a different church, whatever it is that wherever it is that God may want to take me. But I feel like making music for God, for the people of God, is what I was called to do. And so, I don't have set times. I don't know when and where and what year, but
I'm just that way, Everything that I laid
Yeah,
out
yeah.
could change tomorrow. That's
Yeah.
just me at the moment.
for me, I know what I need. I know what I have to establish financially, and I know where God wants to use me. And I pray, let God do what He needs to when He needs to, and I just put it in God's hands.
Jose's passion is music, and amongst other stuff, but he is very passionate about playing guitar and singing, et cetera, et cetera. I am, not to toot my own
Numbers.
horn, but I really enjoyed
Numbers,
debating.
flight planning, mission planning, making
Podcast planning.
making podcasts, information, dates and times, when and where, what are they called? Money, what are they called when you need a plan for?
Our producers are not meant to greet things out.
Thank you. I mean, what is it called when the agenda, the page that tells us what we need to do when, with all the times for when we go on a mission trip?
The itinerary.
Itinerary based.
I'm very
person.
guys. Just for a quick story, this past trip, me and my sister were running about 2 minutes late, and I was having a heart attack about it because we were not given the permission to drive ourselves. I was forbidden, so we had to have drivers coordinated to come pick us up. I had to coordinate the van and all this stuff. And I get downstairs to the lobby, and I texted Jose in advance. Emmy and I are headed down. Please don't be late. And he's like, I got it, whatever. And he might have left me on red.
All my things.
And I get down there, his pretextos or whatever. And I get down there, I'm like, where are Jose and Denise? And he's like, oh, I'm on my way. And then I call him, and he's like, hey, I'm at Starbucks.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, my God.
There was a Starbucks
What do you mean
across
you're
the
at
street.
Starbucks? It was not across the street. It was easily a 5 to 10 minute walk.
No, it was across the street, down
Let me
the
check
parking
something.
lot.
How much time did you spend at the Starbucks?
It was probably 15 to 20 minutes at the Starbucks.
Yeah, so that doesn't include the walk there.
Made
and the
us
walk
about
back.
30 minutes late.
So I was furious. It didn't really like mess up our day, but still, it's just the concept. Oh, I was so mad. I told Emmy, I was like, I'm not gonna deal with this for the whole trip. I was so mad. I was like, we have 5 days left. It's off to a terrible start. I was so mad. So when he says that, that's where he's coming from. Anyway, I tend to debate a lot. Anyway, so that's that. I guess that covers our plans for life, if you will.
Yeah. That wasn't really in your notes there.
No, it wasn't. I added it in.
Okay.
As we were talking, I added in what do we each do weekly after Who Do You Surround
Hey,
Yourself With?
yeah, go for it.
Anyway, if you want to include anything else, just go for it. So, anyway. So now Denise has seemed to disappear off the face of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
She's coming back, I have been told. So I guess we could just start this point, and then she can just come in whenever she comes back. So wherever it is that she went. So is this generation ambitious? And if so, how? So I guess I'll just break down why I wrote this down. No, I don't think our generation is ambitious. I think they have an extremely high potential, and that's why I say they're not. They're ambitious in certain ways, and I'm talking about myself too, but there's so much potential to be unlocked that it doesn't make sense that we're not at where we need to be. Now, we look at the suicide numbers. Denise, come sit down at some point. So we look at the suicide numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the number one cause of anxiety is lack of purpose. 1 in 5 suicides is due to unemployment. And so we look at all this information, and we look at our generation, and we look at everything we're up against. And, you know, as Christians, as Americans, as members of planet Earth, as the universe, everything that we have ahead of us and everything that we have behind us and up and coming, the generations after us.
Yeah.
Is our generation ambitious? And if so, how or how could it be improved?
I think I touched on this last time. I think it goes a lot with getting informed. Getting informed because
just like in general, or about your faith, or about the Bible,
about everything,
everything,
about everything.
Okay.
Because you come from parents that were raised a certain way, so they teach you a certain way, so they know certain things.
And now you're being raised a certain way.
Right.
And that cycle's going to continue.
Right. So if you don't branch yourself out, you know, you had the privilege of your mother being in finances, you know, and you realize
my mom's an authorized CPA in the state of Texas.
Yeah, so you realize that, wow, I want to do that too, right? But for somebody, let's say their dad's a farmer and their mom milks the cows, I don't know, and that boy sees a man riding a horse, training a horse, he's going to be like, hey, maybe I want to train horses. You know what I mean? So
I was watching. We gotta introduce Denise. I was watching a certain podcast the other day, and Denise probably knows which one. And he was talking about, man, I love Texas. And he's like, you know, they have tigers in their backyards. He's like, I bet one guy figured out he could get a tiger, and then his neighbor's like, hang on, we can get tigers. And so then he got a tiger. And the other guy was like, hold on a second, and was all mad that now he's not special anymore. So now he has 100 tigers. And he's like, so there are Texans just living with like 100 tigers in their yard. So anyways, this applies somehow. Denise, we are talking about, is our generation ambitious? I've mentioned the statistics that 1 in 5 suicides is due to unemployment. that the number one source of anxiety is a lack of purpose, and our generation tends to have a lot of anxiety. So there's a big, you can make the assumption that our generation is trying to find its purpose. So we're talking about, is this generation ambitious? So first, introduce yourself. I had Emmy tell us her pronouns. Are you a he, a her, she, a she, her? Sorry, I'm having a stroke. And
Let's
and
let's not
what's
do
your
that.
name?
Just say your name.
What's your name?
And that's
And
it. Your
how old are
relation.
you?
Uh,
Etc. What makes you smile in the mornings? And there.
my name is Denise. I'm Jose's sister. I'm 18, and that's it.
Okay, going back to what I
Alright.
was saying.
Go-
Let me
go back
finish.
to-
Let me
go back to
finish.
what Jose was saying.
Let me
There's
finish.
Not, there's not much to
Let
it.
me finish. Is it good or bad? What I was saying about this generation's ambition is that they need to get informed. They need to get informed about what they want to do, and then pursue that. Because there will come a day where they're in college, or they're working a blue collar, or they're working somewhere, and they still don't know what they want to do. They will be forced to work somewhere to make ends meet, and not somewhere that they would want to go. Does that make sense? So if you're listening to me, 16, 18, look around at what you
90,
want to do.
95?
Yeah. You need to look around what you want to do and pursue it, so that you can, develop yourself and have an ambition, and not be forced to, your passion, what makes you wake up in the morning and go, and not be forced to look at the place that gives you the most money so that you can pay rent by the end of the month. You know what I mean? I think that's what the generation needs to do with their ambition.
It's awesome. And they need to pray. And Christians need to apply themselves. No, Denise? They need to what I mean by that is like a lot of
Throwing
Christians.
rocks.
A lot of
at
Christians are just
people.
like a lot of Christians are just like, well, that's just how they're gonna be, and, or I'm not gonna talk to that person because
Or like,
I'm not gonna listen to what this person has to say because they may cuss every now and then. It's not. Denise, what do you experience at your? Denise has just graduated high school. Congratulations. And she is going into the University of Texas at Arlington.
That's why we brought you in at this time, because we
Because
want
you're
you to
you're in
give-
this transition and you're in the key find your ambition moment. I think you've already found it, but
I think you should look back to your senior year. Look at all the people you saw in the hall, all the people you knew. How would you describe their ambition
Well, I
and
think-
yours?
and like what do they do Sunday to Sunday compared to
Okay, maybe you don't know that, but just their ambition. Go ahead.
like
What's up with you
in general,
Sunday to
not
Sunday?
detailed.
Well, there was a lot of people that didn't know what they were doing, obviously. I guess 'cause they were just young and they didn't really know anything. And there was people like athletes that obviously knew what they were doing. They had a plan,
Mm-hmm.
and other people who
Did you see people
to
that lacked a purpose, like Ethan was saying, like with
yeah.
what suicide is?
Obviously, there was a ton of people with anxiety. I know friends that have anxiety, family members that have anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah,
It's a big
it's a real
problem.
thing, yeah.
Anxiety, like I remember being a junior, senior in high school, and I'd watch shows, like 13 Reasons Why, and everybody's out here talking about oh my God, I'm gonna kill myself, whatever. And I'm just like, these people just have nothing wrong with them. And I was the
But
was
it's
the one.
no, but it's
I
to
was
them
the
it's
one.
It's so real. Like
I was the ones thinking of these people are so over dramatic. They just want attention, which in some points is true, but not overall. And then I'm thinking about all the boomers that lost their arms for us and their legs, and they're watching us sit around on the couch confused. And I'm like, this must be painful for them, and that's what I'm thinking about. And then one day I was like, hold on a second, I have anxiety, and it's like it's a lot
Hold on.
it really makes you have to analyze a real analyzation of where you are in life. And so you look at all that, and what do you think? Well, I guess define the anxiety that you're seeing, and where do you think it'll take us? What do you think can be done to change it? We did not prep Denise.
That's a big
at all,
statement.
folks.
Yeah, that's a big question.
What should be done to?
If you have like something else you
Okay,
had
base
a
it off.
train of thought,
Base it off
like-
what I said. I said that they should get informed for this, and this. What do you think would help a young person, a high school graduate like yourself, find their ambition, find their passion, and start making strides in life without sitting on the couch or without
I'm gonna have to ask: is this person a Christian?
well, whatever,
Because
whatever.
like, the answer would be prayer, but
If they're not, it's Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Christ
if-
is the answer if they're not.
Yeah.
And
if
if
they're
they
not,
do
and
have
if they
Christ,
do,
the answer is, prayer, asking for guidance, whatever.
Seeking knowledge. I guess that sums it up then. Yeah.
All right. Well,
maybe like try new things. If you just stuck on how to go from like where you are.
that connects to what Jose's saying about staying informed. Don't be living in a bubble. Don't
Yeah.
be closed-minded.
Mhm.
Make sure that you're,
Out
allowing all flows of water into your system.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know why. I don't know why I said that, but I thought of flows and that's what came out. But anyway,
Are we still on good and bad?
we can still be on good and bad if you have more points on good and bad.
Okay, well, coming back to
Well, I think we're talking about good and bad. Like at the end of the day, like that's the point.
Okay.
We're defining good ambition and bad ambition.
okay, for that person that has found Christ, and is trying to make a living, trying to we are living in this world, so you will have to work, you will have to make money, but losing sight of God, losing sight of Christ as your center, can lead to bad ambition, can lead to greed, can lead to being real materialistic.
Well, I guess we should put the labels of bad ambition and the labels of good ambition. So
Mhm.
bad ambition, conceited, cocky, greedy,
Thinking you're the best.
thinking you're the best, whatever. Good ambition, righteousness, selflessness,
Mhm.
trying to,
Loving,
very prayerful,
hopeful,
hopeful,
encouraging,
faithful.
forgiving.
Exactly. But we can go all day about that.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
But yeah, I think that's where you have to basically the opposite of each other.
So, the reason I asked for this Bible was to kind of put a stone, put a landmark on where we should guide ourselves as Christians. Okay, we don't want to reach all those bad points of ambition that we just said, right? And so, if we're trying to stay Christ-centered, spiritually centered, because at the end of the day, we'll die. At the end of the day, you'll lose these things, okay? For everybody listening, one day you'll die, and one day all these things won't matter. All the money you have won't matter. So, looking ahead into your spiritual life, looking ahead into the after here, this life after this one, the life after this one, my bad. In Matthew 6:22, no, Matthew 6:19, it says, "Don't store up treasures on earth. Moths and rust can destroy them, and thieves can break in and steal them. Instead, store up your treasures in heaven, where moths and rust cannot destroy them, and thieves cannot break in and steal them. Your heart will always be where your treasure is." And continuing, looking ahead, it talks about money. The title of this verse is money. It's Matthew 6:24 says, "You cannot be the slave of two masters. You will like one more than the other, or be more loyal to one than the other. And you cannot serve both God and money." So, going back to verse 19, it says, "Store up treasures in heaven." And that goes with, if you're Christ-centered, then you will work towards achieving Christ's end, which is saving more souls, right? Spreading the word more. And with all that, you're building yourself treasures in heaven. You know, if you speak to somebody about the Lord, if you tell somebody about God, you're not. The Lord's not gonna send an angel to give you $100 bill. Good job. And there's your pay. No, you're gonna serve the Lord and save souls with nothing in return here on this, in this life. But after you die here physically, your treasures will be stored up for you. For what you did here, you will receive your treasures in heaven. Yeah. So that's the point that we're trying to make with where us as Christians should be focused in our spiritual ambition. Yeah, and not get overwhelmed with this these other ambitions that the world may offer, or that can look appealing, you know, for us to put all our efforts in and forget about the Lord. Yeah.
Sure. Denise, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I think it's easy to, especially if you're young, it's easy to like look at the physical side of it and want the money instead of like praying for what God wants for you. So yeah, it can be a very fine line.
And I think another problem is like most youth just put it off. Like, oh, the day will come where I'll take it seriously, but now I'm just chilling. You know, that's like a very common.
Super easy to do.
That's super easy and super common. You know, just like, you know what?
You've been chilling all day.
You know what? I'm only like maybe a quarter of the way through my life. I'm fine. Like, it's not, you know, not even a quarter. Like, I might be like 18% through my life. Like, it's not, you know, there's no need for me to focus on that right now. It's not like I'm going to die tomorrow. The chances of a car crash, you know, there's a 1% chance you'll crash. Not die, but 1% chance that you will get in a collision when you're driving. Die, I mean, it's still existent.
Kind of like one of our friends that we had recently that passed away in a car crash out the blue.
Is this one of y'all's friends, or do I know this person?
You know this person.
Oh yeah, no, that was the person. Yeah, that person. Oh man,
You just never know.
he was on a spiritual incline like you would never believe. He got married, had married after he had his kid. If that tells you, you know, where he was headed. But you know, he found Christ into another level that he had before. He had this passion for cars, and he peeled out of like a red light or something in the rain. The car lost control. He spun over the median, and he had these power tools in the back seat that went flying, and one of them just like spinning just slapped him in the head, and he got a clear concussion and died. And so, you know, he was like 19, and his son was about to turn 1 or had just turned 1. And so that's where you never know. And, you know, we thank God that he passed away when he was in touch with God. He was actually on a fast while he had the car accident. So we thank God that God, you know, brought him home at the right time. That's not going to happen for everybody. You know, you shouldn't just put everything off. If you're old enough to do a lot of the things that we do, you're old enough to you know, get on your faith. I've seen videos of 9-year-olds, you know, preaching to like 70-year-olds. I mean, it's real. I mean, if you, I don't like want to get gross, but like if you're old enough to have kids, you can like apply yourself to Christ. Like, my dad's been to a wedding in El Salvador where the bride was 19 or 20 and the groom was 12. So like, yeah, you can apply yourself. It doesn't like, I'm not saying that they got married for the right reasons. I don't know anything about the situation. I just know those details. But it's just to say like your ambition. Okay, I guess the way that I could put it is, ambition that is postponed, it doesn't exist. If I'm like, you know what, right now I'm chilling, in December I'm really gonna apply myself, you don't have ambition. And it's not,
You're procrastinating.
you're procrastinating. It's not ambition that it's like, no, I'm gonna be ambitious then. No, you don't have ambition. Your ambition is non-existent. Period. It doesn't matter if you have all of these plans. Your ambition doesn't exist, in my view. And so, I think we've distinguished good versus bad ambition. Do y'all have anything else to cover on that?
No.
Now, I wrote this down. I think we kind of already covered it. But so what's the difference, I guess I could word this better, is in working an infinite amount of hours. You know, you work 60 hours a week, but you come home every night, have dinner, go to sleep, do the same thing every day. You may go to church on Sunday, and that's your life. You know, you don't do anything else. Maybe you have a family, but that's it. Or are there other ambitions, could you take those 60 hours a week to create more, to plant a seed in yourself, to create more ambition? You know, what's the difference in that? What's somebody that's listening and is like, well, how are they going to talk to me about ambition when I work 60 hours a week and, you know, I'm on the grind, whatever. But in reality, you're not in touch with God, and you're not in touch with God's plan for you, and you just don't understand what he has waiting for you. What's the argument there?
It's for that person that is ambitious and is working to better themselves or to make more, you know, for themselves or for their family. You know, props to you, because it is hard, right? They are putting an effort in, but at the end of the day, um, it's not gonna fill them, and it's not what Christ wants for you. Christ didn't put us here for us to just work us to the bone and then we die. That's Anybody can do that, and so to that person that is working that 60 hours, that feels like they can't go to any church or they can't do anything else because they're working too much, you know, I think their first step should be Christ. And if you already have Christ, you have to reevaluate, because something's missing. If you're just going to
Right,
work,
because you have to listen to your
going to sleep.
conscience. And if you're truly praying for guidance and you're truly in touch with God, you're going to be in sync with your conscience. You're going to know when this decision is a good decision and a bad decision.
And if you're not
Your
praying,
your gut feeling, you know, you're going to know the difference.
if you're not praying, once you do start praying, you're going to notice the difference too.
Right? How can you know the walk of God if you're not walking the walk of God? How can you know what God's plan for you is if you're not living in God's plan?
Right.
It's very simple, but at the same time, it's very easy to fall
Yeah,
into.
because the walk with God is work.
Right. No, it's 100% work.
It is work. It's a commitment, because, like Denise said, it's a fine line, right? And you could easily step over the line to where you're just working to work, and you're just making ends meet just because that's what you do, you know. And you forget to. It just tumbles there. You know what I mean? You stop tithing. You stop praying. You stop looking for God. You stop looking ahead to see what God wants to do with you.
You know, the one that doesn't pay your tithe, the Bible says you are ladrón. You're
a
stealing.
thief.
You're a thief. You're stealing from God.
Yeah.
That, you know, the church, they need my money, whatever. It's not your business to know what the church does with the money. Whether the church is a laundering business for drugs, you pay your tithe. Unless you're in that position to criticize it, or God, you know, puts it on you to what's going on with the church, whatever. Which is not most people.
Mm.
But if you're like, nah, it's because they take my money or whatever. It's because the pastor just bought a new ranch and whatever. Even though you have no idea the financials of the pastor, he may draw in like $400,000 a year from the church, but you don't know that 100%. I remember a lot of people when I was little would come over to my house and they're like, they just have like a look on their face and I'm like, what? And they're like, to be honest, it's kind of underwhelming. And I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, I was expecting like some kind of mansion or something. And I'm like, why did you expect that? And like what most people don't realize, my dad hasn't taken a salary from the church for like 7, 8 years. People don't understand that. Actually 10 years. My dad just doesn't do it. He has a business outside of the church. My mom works in the secular field, 50 hours a week, and then comes to church. So you can't make assumptions about people. Pay your tithe. Don't be a thief of the Lord. Don't distract yourself from your true ambition and pursue your true ambition.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be focused on what everybody else is doing, because you have no idea where they're coming from. You just don't. So that's my take for the day. But that's the difference. You need to be, and it's funny we're talking about this because the next point is the role of prayer in your ambition. Because here's a deep thought. You could be locked up into what the world's ambition is for you, and you're praying for that to be true. You're not praying for God to give you the spiritual ambition that you should have and the plan that he has for you. You're not praying for that ambition. You're praying that the world ambition become true. God, please help me get a bonus next week so that I can buy that new car because it's clean. You're not focused on that. If you're really praying for that, and we all fall into that very easily. You have to have the fine line, the fine distinguishment between God's voice and the world's voice. And you can't lock them up. One way, you can bring God's voice into the world. That's kind of the point. But the other way around, you're not supposed to bring the world's viewpoint into your intimate conversations with God, because you're not guiding yourself at that point, and you're not letting God work through you because you're locked up. Satan's gotten to you. You can't let that happen. So that's where, if y'all want to cover the role of prayer in your ambition.
Yeah, it's super easy to get.
It's super easy to do, and it's also very difficult.
Oh, it's easy to fall into the wrong things. It's a piece of cake to go off and sin and mess up and go want the nicest cars, the nicest clothes, the nicest whatever. But if you're not sound in yourself, and if you're not praying, period, then your ambitions are gonna be whack.
Right.
So, ask me that question one more time.
The role of prayer and ambition. I think we've kind of. And Denise, do you have any comments?
Like you said,
Bring
you
the
start
mic a little closer. I mean, I have the mic way too close to my mouth.
yeah, you actually get really loud back there. I have to turn you down because you talk a little too loud.
Get a little bit of behind the scenes action up in here. Speaking of which, Emmy, can you please bring me some new batteries? These were more than half out.
They're
Anyways.
all dead.
Oh,
I'm
they're
sorry.
all dead.
Yeah.
So
If
anyway.
any of them are
Anyway,
charged, go
Denise,
ahead and
as you
pick
were saying, it's not dead yet.
Like you said, sometimes you start praying for what you want and not for what asking for what God wants. And then you just start praying wrong. That's not,
Because you can pray wrong. I mean,
Yeah.
that's true. I mean, you can pray the complete. For example, I was always taught to pray in Jesus' name, amen. I was never allowed to just say amen. My mom would give me a 45-minute lecture about it every single time I did it. I have to pray in the name of Jesus, and in nombre de Jesus.
Yeah.
And I don't tend to get super religious with the reading the Bible thing, but our worship leader Saul, he's always like, "Vamos a leer en el nombre del Padre, del Hijo, y del Espíritu Santo." He's like, "We're gonna read in the name of the Son, the Holy Spirit, God. We're gonna read in all of them." And then he reads the verse. A lot of people would argue you need to do that because you can't just "Hey God, what's up, bro?" Amen. No, you cannot do that. You need to pray the right way. But it's not complicated.
Mm-hmm. Well, in your prayer for your ambition, I'm gonna speak for myself. I've prayed for God to show me the right way of doing things, to show me the right way of seeing things, because you got to understand that your the way you see things and the way you perceive the world may be distorted from what God wants from you, right? So you have to put yourself in the position to where you're okay with God changing you. You're okay with God changing your mentality, and you're okay with God.
Jesus, take the wheel.
Yeah, you have to put yourself at God's will if you want Him to move in you, and if you want Him to truly lead you into wherever it is that you were called to be, then you need to be humble. You need to humble yourself before the Lord, because if you're worried about, I don't know, the next laptop that comes out, the next phone that comes out, you'll never be satisfied, and it will continue till the day you die. Yeah, and so it's got to be of God.
Because there's always another billionaire. There's always another trillionaire. There's always more. There's always more rich people. Anyway, okay. I think we've defined that. If y'all have more comments on it, feel free. I have next. We're almost done. I have next. Cocky ambition versus real passionate. I think we've covered this, but to clear what I'm saying, cocky ambition is well, how are you gonna tell me what to do when I work 60 hours a week? Or if you and I even, if somebody were to suggest to us a better way to use our time, and we were just what do you know? That's cocky ambition. That's we're not truly passionate about letting God communicate to us through other people and letting God, exercise His plan for our lives. If we get caught up in the cocky, the egotistical, the pride of it, because if you're a hard worker, it's very easy to be prideful about it, because there's so many lazy people out there that if you work 60 hours a week and you drive the Porsche 911, you're driving around it's very easy to be like, yeah, I got here because I worked hard, whatever. You're not focused on the true passion of ambition. Anything else on that?
Um, I think cocky ambition is like stepping on others to get yourself higher. It's not the right kind of ambition. You're tearing others down to get up higher.
Sure.
Um, yeah, and closing yourself off from other people's views or points that they may try to share with you, um, thinking that you know it all. Um, it's a, it's a. I'm not gonna say bad. Well, it is bad, but it's like dangerous because more things come with that. More things come than just I don't care and just looking away because you're isolating yourself. Um, and let's say you work in that you're working those 60 hours, you're making it happen, and you're fired. And now people don't like you because you stepped all over them or you treated them wrong. You have
Or,
no connections.
you get the promotion, and now everybody quits because they don't want you to be their boss.
Yeah,
You know,
something.
that kind of stuff.
So
It just
just
ends up
keep your
being
mind open. Keep your,
And I think something that we haven't touched, it's important to always be a leader. Because if you're a follower, in a way, you're kind of just leeching. And you can be a follower by being a leader. You can still have role models and pursue other aspects of life and lead simultaneously. And it doesn't matter what level. A lot of people think of leader like as, el mero mero que manda, like the leader. Like, no,
Mhm.
that's not. Like, you can be in charge of, like, making sure the grass is cut. Like, it doesn't matter. You're still leading, and you're representing the importance that the body of Christ is to you. So I think that's where it's important to know you always need to be a leader, because you don't want to be, someone that leeches.
hmm know when to listen to.
Right. Know who and when to listen to. Know
Mhm.
who do you surround yourself with.
Yeah, keep yourself well rounded. Stay open minded, and do your best. Push forward. The next thing, looking at all this, are you rightfully ambitious?
Right. So I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do the same thing I did last week. Now that we know the definition of a world ambition, a spiritual ambition, the Bible verses that we've put, when you know your beliefs and values that God, has for you, when you know who you surround yourself with, what do you do each week? You know, identifying yourself with your generation to know if it's a truly ambitious generation or if you need to be one of the leaders to make it so. The difference between a good ambition, a bad ambition, a cocky ambition, and a passionate ambition. The difference of working an eternity or working an eternity in a better way. A true eternity in the arms of God. The role of prayer in ambition. So once you look at all of these points, are you righteously ambitious? Are you a truly ambitious being? And if you're not, encourage you to pray, ask God for guidance, forgiveness, and it's not over. You can do better. And hey, if you consider yourself righteously ambitious, that's awesome. Continue it. Be better. You can always be better. So
I feel like yes, podcasts are always like a full circle. That was just circle back. Yeah, do that on purpose.
Who does that?
what do you mean a circle? Like,
It just keeps going. Like,
He just recaps and recaps.
yeah.
well, yeah. I mean, we're that was gonna be the last word. So that's why I was doing that, so you can know like each point.
It's good.
Okay. Do you have any more points, Dennis?
No, I don't.
Dennis does not spell her name with an E at the end, so I always call her Dennis. And she just corrected my spelling. So,
'Cause Denise is not my name.
okay. So, Denise, do you have any more comments?
No.
Cool. Jose?
For my youth, if you don't know what you're doing, look around. do some research. Look at what you want to do. Look at what you want to study. Look at what interests you, and don't think that you're shoved into a little narrow walkway that amounts to a job that you hate or something that you don't want to do. Okay, that goes for what you're gonna do with your life, but it also goes with what you're gonna do at church. If you don't want to hold the door, don't, because it's gonna hurt you and other people more than it helps, right? Because you're gonna do it in a not caring way, in a
But
bad
if you,
way.
But if you want to have a true ambition and you want to be, a righteous human, if they really need you to open the door, you should do it enthusiastically.
Yeah, because you're not always gonna want to do it.
You should do it
True.
enthusiastically, ready to do it. Ready.
Right. And that should come from your heart.
Right.
And if it doesn't,
It shouldn't come from,
We have a problem.
the pastor made me, I don't want to get chewed out.
right. So you could argue it both ways.
Yeah.
Yes, go ham at something that you don't want to do.
Eventually it'll pay off.
Okay, but if you're there, and you just hate it.
But if you're doing it
You're not reaping any-
enthusiastically-
you're not
if you're doing
reap-
it enthusiastically in the presence of the
You're
Lord,
not
gonna hate it.
reaping any fruit.
So, folks, this is where you have to pray and you have to ask God for guidance, because God will open doors for you. I think the three of us have had experiences in our lives where we know God will open doors for us. And a lot of the times we're doing things that we don't want to do, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a second, if I hadn't been here, etc. So,
It's always a mind-blowing experience with you.
so anyway,
Okay, well,
so to wrap this up,
yeah.
I'm sorry I haven't made the dad joke yet. Jose's wearing a shirt that says swoosh life. If you want to live the swoosh life, listen to this podcast.
All right.
All right. Y'all have a good night. Y'all say your goodbyes.